The following is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated. Aaron Rodgers out for the year? Oh, wow. This is Total Football Talk. Welcome to another installment of Total Football Talk, where it is hard-hitting gridiron news the way you prefer it. I am one half of this show, one of the co-hosts of this program, Cole Johnson, and I am joined as always by the other half, the man known as D. Willie, or Drew Willingham. How you doing, my brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, bro. Thank you again for this awesome intro. I love how we start this show off with one fire intro. We had one great week of first week action in the NFL. It started off great. It ended with a bit of drama, but we'll definitely get to that here in just a moment.
Oh, we most certainly do. We most certainly do. Yes, of course, I touched on it in the cold open. We'll definitely touch on the Monday Night Football game and what happened there between the Bills and the Jets. Of course, we'll touch on the debacle that happened in the same stadium the night before, and we will all go all the way back to what started it all, last Thursday's game. So, without further ado, let's get to the opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Ready.
And here is where we'll review all of the action from the previous week, starting with last Thursday's game between the Lions and the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. The Lions actually surprised people with a 21-20 victory over the Chiefs. People are saying that, well, the Lions should have won that game because they were without the Chiefs were without Travis Kelce and Chris Jones, who restructured his deal, and now he'll be back on the squad. But people are not talking about the Lions enough because they held the powerful Chiefs offense to 2 field goals in the second half. What were your impressions about the Lions' victory over the Chiefs?
I think Kadarius Toney needs to shut his mouth. Is what I think, is because one catch for 1 yard, Cole Johnson. One catch for 1 yard. Then, of course, the interception that Patrick Mahomes threw was definitely pretty costly for that team as well. I mean, the Lions, the biggest question we need to ask is, did the Lions bite off some kneecaps during this game? Because they were out there fighting each and every play. They were biting off kneecaps, those Lions were. Dan Campbell is one great inspirational coach. I look forward to seeing what the Lions do this year.
Those boys grind, and I love the fact they take after not just the leadership, but they take after the personality of the former tight end and now current head coach. He's leading that young squad very well. So is Jared Goff, 250 yards in the air, and played relatively mistake-free football. And credit to the offensive line, the Lions, keeping that number 16 jersey, that white and clean. Beautiful job. So that was Thursday night. And now we'll get into the Sunday 1 p.m. games, starting with my team, the Houston Texans, getting shellacked by the Ravens, 25-9. But that game was bowling shoe ugly. And what do I mean? Well, CJ Stroud, he did not make many mistakes in his first start, but he looked like a rookie. and he looked like a quarterback starting for his very first time in the NFL. But you heard my partner wince. This is why. J.K. Dobbins, who came back from injury to get to this point, is now out for the year because he got injured in that game.
Yes. Just
Your
coming
thoughts
back
on
from
it?
injury as well.
Yeah.
After what he did to come back, everybody was giving him praise. You and I were just talking about, I'll call him Just Kidding Dobbins last week on episode 1. Just Kidding Dobbins. Well, you showed up, you're going to have a great year, and apparently you were just kidding, because then you go out there and that happens. And I'm sorry that happens, because you don't want to see that happen, especially what we got for our Monday night game we'll be talking about here in a little bit. But when you think about the spark that he was going to be to this running game, that is a huge blow. And you talk about C.J. Stroud, too, as well, in the same breath when it comes to the Houston Texans. When he came out there, he did play like a rookie, but the most important part was he didn't make it too many mistakes out there as well. He didn't have any scores as far as touchdowns go when it comes to passing the ball around out there. But when it comes to, he didn't throw any interceptions. I like what I saw with that. He was very smart when it came to the passing game. He needs to get a little bit more aggressive in certain aspects to it, but hey, he's a rookie. But when it comes to J.K. Dobbins on the other end of the football, it was definitely sad to see that, but it was fortunate enough for the Ravens to still be able to come out with a 25-9 victory at the end of that game.
Yeah, kudos to the Ravens, although the offense did not show the explosion that I think that they want. That's okay. They still came out with a W. That's really all that matters. And we'll, of course, talk about who they face off and who the Texans face off later on in the 2-minute drill.
And Lamar Jackson as well. He went out there. He didn't have any passing touchdowns either, and he did have a turnover with that interception. So Lamar needs to get it. He spent all that time, all that energy trying to get that money. Oh, he got that Johnny Manziel pay money, Cole Johnson. He got that money, but he didn't play like it yesterday. He needs, not yesterday, but on Sunday. He didn't play like he deserved to get paid out here in these streets. But you know what? If he doesn't, at some point, they got other quarterbacks in the league that can fill those shoes, because you might have some swagger, but you didn't have it on the field yesterday when it came to being able to pass the ball into the end zone.
I'm Cole Johnson, and I approve this message. Yes, Lamar needs to show much better than how he was Sunday. He did not look great. And unfortunately, I think it might be a portent of things to come. And I actually like him, but he's got to show more growth than he has. But as I said, they came out with a W, 25-9, even though it was bowling shoe ugly.
Justice Hill is what saved that game, and J.K. Dobbins had the other score as well. So you take away those 21 points from the 3 touchdowns, then you only had a 4-point game, okay? And in that score, you would have lost 9-4 in that case. So when I think about that, you were playing like a dumpster Pelican quarterback. And I do not want to see anyone play like a dumpster Pelican when it comes to playing in the NFL. I want to see grade A football, because the NFL is supposed to be top tier, right? We go to XFL and USFL if we want to see lower level football. If we want to see lower level football, we can watch arena football as well. I want to watch top tier play. And when I see Lamar Jackson getting paid and then playing like a dumpster Pelican, I get upset.
Well, speaking of dumpster Pelicans, we'll go from M&T Bank Stadium to U.S. Bank Stadium in the Twin Cities, where we saw the Buccaneers beat the Vikings 20-17. Look, Baker Mayfield, he threw for 173 yards and threw for a couple touches and no picks. But the Vikings, you're paying for not having Dalvin Cook in your backfield. 44 throws versus 17 runs. And Alexander Madison, 11 carries, not gonna cut it. Your thoughts on the game?
It was great to actually see Bunker Stayfield go in there and do what he did. I call him Bunker Stayfield because of him jumping from team to team the past few years and what he has done and what he has contributed, especially in that game that he did last year for the Rams. All Bunker Stayfield, old Baker Mayfield. But yeah, good old Bunker up there in Tampa Bay fills in for one Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II. It has been a while since I've been able to say that, but I'm saying it today because in the first game of action, real action, as a quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oh, Bunker Stayfield goes up there, and he does not stink it up. He throws for 2 touchdowns, did not have any interceptions, by the way. He did not throw it all over the place in a bad way. He did in a good way. But he only had 173 yards, Cole Johnson. That is what I'm concerned about. He was able to win that game 20-17 over one Kirk Cousins, who had 344 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. But what hurt the Vikings was that one lone interception that Kirk Cousins had. And, you know, I'm rocking the old school burgundy and gold today, my man. I got it on. And Kirk Cousins was a part of this team back when I got this jersey, because I'm kind of shielding the other logo on the other side, so that way nobody acts like a snowflake out here. But when you think about Kirk Cousins and what he has meant to the teams that he's played for, and to go to the Vikings and to do what he did last year, be on that show quarterback, and then lay the egg with that one interception, had Kirk Cousins, I think the bigger question is, did Kirk Cousins cost the game with that one interception? I believe he did.
He probably did. He probably did. He probably did. Look, to the chat real fast. Ike Dozen, what's up, my man? Let's go! Episode 2. That's right, baby. That's right. We're glad you're here, man. We're glad you're here. Cool McCain of the Eagles Elite. And we're going to touch on his team. His team is the Eagles. When they host the Vikings, who says that they are trash. We will touch on how the Eagles will fare against the Vikings later on in the show, but glad to hear, brother. And of course, Giants fan, my mentality brother. How you doing? Wise El Jefe? I was stuck in my mind. He's like, look, hello, my brothers.
I apologize to Dallas Cowboy fans, New York Giants fans, and Wise El Jefe for picking that game wrong, because I actually picked the Giants to win that game before they went 0-7.
He said that.
So
yeah, he did say that.
I want to publicly apologize for that, which I'll get to that when we get to the games here shortly. But I apologize for being wrong with that, because now they might go 0-8 to start the season.
And cool. To throw more shade on Kirk Cousins, he says the white Dak Prescott it. and I can't find a fault or lie in that statement. I'm with you on that. So from the Twin Cities down to New Orleans in the Mercedes Superdome, the Saints defeated the Titans in another bowling shoe ugly game, 16-15. Well, Derek Carr threw for over 300 yards. Even though he threw a pick, he did throw for a touchdown as well, which actually was the difference maker. Ryan Tannehill. Not one, not two, but 3 interceptions. And there was one throw he made. It looked like a beautiful back shoulder throw to DeAndre Hopkins. The only problem, DeAndre Hopkins wasn't the one who caught it. It was Paulson Audubon. And you would have thought he was the intended receiver because the route got jumped and the pick was on. And that was the pick which made the game basically advantage Saints. Your thoughts on this?
When are the Titans going to put Vrabel out of his misery? Because after this game, you got him talking about how Derrick Henry is still like the workhorse and still the greatest running back in the NFL, right?
That is correct.
But when you look at what he did, 15 carries for 63 yards, 4.2 yards per carry, it seems a little average to me. Seems a little average. Yes. So when you think about how average that is, when you think about the fact that your man's throwing 3 interceptions, I think it's going to be Levis time before we know it, and that's going to be at a realm to try to save your job, because you're going to put Levis out there trying to save your job, because Tannehill has proven that he is all the hype that he was back in the day of not being able to live up to the hype. Because look at where we're at today. They should have made this change 2 to 3 years ago. Instead, Tannehill has been riding that one good season he had in Tennessee for far too long.
Yeah. Well stated, Drew. Well stated, Drew. I believe the Titans, and I mean from the players on up to the owner, I think they're still living off of 2019, and they're thinking, and they're crossing their fingers, we might make it back to the AFC Championship game again with this crew, and they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. I mean, because the only way you probably can is if Derrick Henry is bulletproof, does not get injured, and you give him the ball 30 times a game. That's your only shot. But besides that, good luck to you. You're going to see more games like this, and you're going to come out on the losing end more times than not, because teams can just simply play ugly along with you and do it better than you can, Titans. But a part of me's happy that you took a 16-15. Oh, I'm happy about that. Now, from the Superdome that's named Mercedes to the stadium that's named Mercedes, Atlanta, where the Falcons, it really wasn't in doubt, 24-10 over the divisional rival Panthers. Bryce Young got sacked twice, threw 2 picks, and he did not really look all that great. He didn't even throw for under 50 yards, and he just looked all out of sorts. Now, I could throw pedals at the feet of Desmond Ridder, but 15 of 18 and 115 yards and a touchdown, nah. but they emphasized the running game, which I do like, and so did the Panthers. But that's really all they have, because that offensive line can not pass block to save their lives. Your thoughts, sir?
You know, what I think about this is Frank Reich really the quarterback guru that he has had all of this hype to be for so long. When you look at Bryce Young having 146 yards in his debut, great, you had that 1 touchdown, but it kind of gets nullified when you have 2 interceptions to beat on top of that. You know, Adam Thielen, you got Adam Thielen from Minnesota. You know, he comes in there with 2 receptions for 12 yards, Cole. What in the father is up with that when you think about all of that hype coming from him, coming from Minnesota? You got Frank Reich, the quarterback guru, which what'd you do with Carson Wentz? But hey, when you think about what he has done and contributed to the NFL over the course of now a few decades when it comes to Frank Reich, this seems like a pretty good match made in heaven here in Carolina. But unfortunately, it didn't quite work out when it came to week 1. And you got a lot of work ahead of yourselves if you're going to try to at least be a little over 500 with a 9-8 record, which I don't see it. You're going to be under 500 or under, you're going to be under wins, losses this year. You're going to have more losses than victories this year when it comes to the Carolina Panthers. I'm sorry, but the last game we just had, talking about how the Saints just won over the Titans. The Titans would have won had they not had 3 turnovers, okay? And when you look at this game right here, the Panthers very well could have been in this game had it not been for those 2 interceptions, because they only lost by 2 touchdowns. They lost 24-10. Okay. So with those 2 interceptions you gave up, you could have been close in the game and had a chance there at the end to come out with a last-second field goal and win by a field goal. Had you not had those 2 interceptions, it would have changed the whole complexion of the game. You might have still lost by a touchdown or a field goal, but the complexion of the game would have been different had you not had those 2 turnovers, let alone everything else that transpired in the game. So if you're such a quarterback guru there, Frank Reich, you're going to hone this with Bryce Young, and he will be able to build on this for a first week of the season and still have 16 more games to go. He could very well build on this, but you got to prove now how much of a quarterback guru you really are there, Frank Reich, is my opinion.
Well, congrats to the Falcons. The defense did well. You took advantage of the rookie QB the way you should, and you get one more chance to do it when you travel to Charlotte later on in the year. But I agree with Cool. The Panthers' offensive line is trash. I agree. It is.
Which one's worse, the Panthers or the Jets?
We'll get to the Jets' offensive line and their woes a little later. V-Lock A3 or Victor Lock or Victor Lock comes in. He says, the Grandmaster VPs, Cole Johnson, thank you, sir, and Sensei Drew Willingham. Also, Wise El Jefe. It is good to see you, Victor. It is good to see you, my friend. And we will talk glowingly about your team in about a couple of minutes. But we travel from Atlanta, the ATL, to Indianapolis, where the Jaguars beat up on the Colts 31-21. Kevin Ridley comes back from being suspended from gambling serving a full year suspension over it. Did well, and Trevor Lawrence made him look good, over 100 receiving yards. Anthony Richardson, he got his first start. Thoughts on the game?
The Colts came out here, and for the first part of the game, it took a while for them to get things going. I mean, they weren't getting mollywopped the first half. It was only 14-7 going into halftime.
Right.
Okay. Then when they come out in the third quarter, they actually had turned the tide a little bit. It looked like the Colts were preparing to take the victory when it came through the third quarter, because they had scored 14 points to the Jaguars 3, being up 21-17 going into the final quarter. And then at that point, Jaguars scored 2 touchdowns to pull away and win by 10 points at the end. But I liked the little bit of fight that I saw there with the Colts, and a little, Shane Steichen and what they did. I think Anthony Richardson might be a decent quarterback, because he did have an interception, but so did Trevor Lawrence. Okay. So, you had Richardson, rookie, turning the ball over, no big deal. He did have a touchdown pass. He's a little bit more mobile. Definitely a big upgrade considering what you had with Matt Ryan last year. So, as Colts fans, you should be a little bit excited to at least start the season out, but only losing by 10 points and not by what the Cowboys beat up on the Giants here. We'll talk about here soon. You're muted.
There. Richardson also had a touchdown run in the game as well. And Trevor Lawrence, first start in his third year in the league. Not bad. 241 yards, 24 of 32. Had 2 touches. He could have played a cleaner game. He did throw a pick. But I definitely am with Cool where he says Anthony Richardson is who I said he was. I agree. Giants fan extraordinaire Wyatt says the Giants O-line is the worst, which Cool retorted by saying Panthers actually by a slight margin.
Okay.
And yes, we'll be talking about the Giants versus the Cowboys. Unfortunately, since Wyatt will be doing Stuck in My Mind very soon, if not now, he will be missing the part when we talk about them. But you'll catch it on the replay. I believe you will, because we're going to be fair. That's how we roll. We don't do things slanted. Now, from Indy to the Rust Belt in Pittsburgh, where there was an ESPN analyst that said that the Steelers was going to upset the 49ers. With what team? 30-7 was his final score. The game was not even that close, because Brandon Ayuk, he almost caught for 130 yards. He got 2 touchdowns as well. Christian McCaffrey ran all over the field, 152 yards, along with including a 65-yarder, which ended with a touchdown. And the Steelers' offensive line gave up 1, no 2, no 3, no 4, 5 sacks. But this was the team that was supposed to upset the 49ers. Your thoughts, sir?
Besides the interceptions that were thrown by the Steelers, they punted the ball 6 times throughout the game as well, and allowed 5 sacks. Now, the 49ers actually, ironically, had more penalties. They had 11 penalties for 85 yards, as opposed to Steelers had 6 of 60. When I think about all that, the 49ers need to clean that up, because that's, of course, the first game of the year, but you cannot survive this the rest of this year if you're going to have that many penalties. False starts, you name it, encroachment, whatever. You cannot be having that many penalties in the game if you're going to have success throughout the entirety of a 17-game season. You need to clean that up now. Overall, he played well. Brock Purdy definitely healed up from that injury, did what was necessary to come back. It looks like he didn't miss a beat as far as what he can do as an overall quarterback. We're still used to seeing 300- and 400-yard games from him, though, so he's going to have to rehabilitate a little bit to get back to where he was there, because he didn't look quite Purdy-esque. But as far as game manager mode, making the right decisions, Purdy did a great job in that game. Now, Pickett, 2 interceptions. You look at the amount of sacks that he took. Definitely some question marks with that offensive line, with him taking 5 sacks. But the problem that I have is third down efficiency. They are 5 of 15 and 1 of 3 on 4th down, which is why they had to punt so many times. They punted 6 times. That is concerning if you're someone who follows the Steelers as a fan or a media or whatnot, because that amount of punts and what they did with their time of possession, being the fact that they had 15 minutes less of time of possession, as to where the 49ers dominated with 37 minutes and 23 seconds, as opposed to the Steelers' 22 minutes and 37 seconds. I think that the Steelers are in for a long year if they keep playing this way, and the 49ers might not have the continued success if they keep having as many penalties as they had in yesterday's game if they don't clean that up.
You could not have your quarterback throw 46 times and only run it 10 times. Now, I know part of it was the defense that they faced, but you still have to give the impression that you can run, and they didn't. And Najee Harris, who is a really good back, you just can't give him only 6 carries, but you did, and that's why he has less carries than how many points you scored, and that's why you took the L. So congrats to you, Steelers, for putting forth an L performance. As for the 49ers, people thought that they were going to suck with Brock Purdy at QB. Now you see that it's not. He is perfect for that team, and I've said that back in January that he's going to be their franchise QB for years to come. Now, speaking of franchise QBs for years to come, Sam Howell. He had his first opening day start, and he has already started, but he has his first opening day start, and the Commanders pulled out to a 2016 victory over the Cardinals. 202 yards did Howell throw, a touchdown, but he was a little shaky. He did throw a pick. And the offensive line for the Commanders, they have to do a little better. 6 sacks allowed, not so good. But I would be happy for the Commanders, but you were playing against a team that was starting Joshua Dobbs. I mean, he did well. I mean, 21-30. That was great. Only 432 yards. But, I mean, it was good. It was good. Your thoughts on your team coming out with a W in FedEx Field?
Before I give my thoughts there, Cole Johnson, you need to take a little bit of advice from Birdman and put a little speck on his name. Put a little speck on Sam Howell's name, because the man is still undefeated. The man is undefeated in the NFL. He's played 2 games, and he is undefeated. Birdman said it best. Put some speck on my name. Put some speck on Sam Howell's name, as he said on Breakfast Club like over 10 years ago, but he still said it. Put some speck on his name, because Sam Howell is undefeated. You look at his stats. They weren't great. They were not dumpster pelican quite stats, but they were not great either. However, when you have 3 turnovers in the first half, you got lucky that you still won the game, because Sam Howell, the one you need to put some speck on his name of, he had an interception and a fumble in the first half. Not to mention the other fumble in the first half as well. But when they came out after halftime, Eric B. showed up at halftime and lit a fire under him. And that's what happened. He got a fire lit under him, and he goes out there the second half and made better decisions. And then what happens? They start showing the other side of the ball. What happens with the Arizona Cardinals? They started showing how much of a dumpster pelican team they really are, because they are playing with a quarterback who had only been with the team for 2.5 weeks. Josh Dobbs has been on the team 2.5 to 3 weeks, up to the point to where he started that first game of the year. You and I talked about it last week. Call of Duty. Him playing all that Call of Duty and not focusing on the NFL. And look at where this team is now. Dumpster Pelican-esque team, because they're out there playing like dumpster pelicans. And you're playing the Washington Commanders, and the Commanders on top of that. If you didn't have those 3 turnovers, you would have won by a larger margin. But instead, you had 3 turnovers, and you almost lost to a team that is known as the Arizona Dumpster Pelicans by myself, Cole Johnson, and others, because of what they have for an offensive side of the ball. Now, look, if you're a Washington Commanders fan, you got to be excited that you got the victory on Sunday. But There's some things that need to be cleaned up on that offensive side of the ball if the Commanders are going to have any success this year, because you should have beat the Arizona Cardinals last week. I was talking about it on our first episode of this show. I was talking about it in the first episode of the Commanders Gridiron Report. I was talking about it yesterday on episode 2 of that show, and I'm talking about it right now in episode 2 right here. You deserve to win that game on paper before the game started. But the way you played on Sunday, you deserve to lose. And you pulled away with the victory on that one. You gave up too many sacks, and you had too many turnovers. If you do not clean that up this week in Denver, you're going to have a very rough season, because you're playing another team who played like dumpster Pelicans all year long last year and played like dumpster Pelicans this past Sunday. But we'll get to that here shortly.
Yes, we are. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. My fire's out.
No, I know. But I was going to say this instead. Is you finished or is you done?
Oh, I'm all the way. Well done. I'm ready for the comments on that one. I know somebody had to say something about that one.
Oh, tree you. Let me stop. Dante Hill, what's up? What's up,
Dante, my man?
Cool. You agree with us. Exactly. You have to try to run. Yes. You have to. You have to show a presence of physicality. Otherwise, forget it. Viggy Lock 83, he says Purdy is legit. Thank you. You're right, he is. There should not be any doubt now, and I don't think there is now, and there shouldn't be. Cool also says, look, man, beating the worst team in the NFL isn't an accomplishment.
That's what I'm saying.
And Vlock 83 says Kyler Murray played at a bunch of Call of Duty, and now they play like booty. Look, my thoughts on the game. The Commanders were a better squad, but they should be ashamed of themselves for allowing the Cardinals to hang in there as long as they did. And if I agree with you, if the same type of game is played going forward, especially with the teams that they should beat, those games will end up being L's, let alone when they play the Eagles, the Giants, or the Cowboys. I mean, you have to, especially in the division where they play, you got to show up and play much cleaner football than that. Because if you cannot make it mistake-free, you're going to have teams take full advantage of it and you. But with that being said, a win's a win in the NFL. The Commanders are 1-0. Good start to the new regime in Landover, Maryland, or Ashburn, Virginia, or anywhere in the DMV area. But and one more game in the 1 p.m. slot on Sunday to talk about. The Browns 24, the Bengals 3. Okay, now to the 420. No, I'm just joking. The Browns were unimpressive. I mean, Watson threw for only 154 yards. He threw a touchdown. He threw a pick. Nick Chubb, who was doing Nick Chubb things, 100 yards on the ground. The only impressive thing is the fact that the Browns know who they are and what they are. They ran the ball 40 times. They got 200 yards out of it. The new $275 million man, aka Joe Burrow, 14 and 31, 82 yards. And he got sacked twice. Your thoughts on this? Was a horrible game, but your thoughts, sir?
This game right here. You just said onto the 420 times game. I think somebody might have spent too much time with the 420 shop before the game started. Hanging out in there and eating too much is one thing, and maybe taking a trap nap before the game, just waking him up halfway through his trap nap. He goes out there and lays an egg. You got paid the amount of money that you just got, over $250 million you're going to be making from this team, and you went 14 of 31 for 82 yards. Okay. Your receivers, horrible. Joe Mixon, a running back, Cole, had 56 receiving yards. Everybody else didn't even eclipse 10 yards except for Chris Evans, who was another running back. Okay. So you're throwing check down passes. You're throwing check down passes all game long. Zach Wilson, there was talking about it last night, which we'll get to that here shortly, about that's what he did all of last year, which is why the Jets didn't have the success that they had or that they should have had last year because of the type of play from the quarterback. And you just spent over $250 million over someone who had 56 passing yards to a running back, and his next highest receiver was another running back. When you think about the stats of yesterday's game against the Cleveland Browns, a laughing stock of the NFL for quite some time. A man at quarterback at the helm of that team who likes to receive inappropriate massages and then bring too much heat down onto the franchise. And then he shows up for the first week 1 start of himself in quite some time because of everything I just mentioned, and comes out there and outduels a quarterback who just got a $250 million contract, but he outduels him by only throwing for 154 passing yards and a touchdown, along with an interception. Okay. So when I think about the fact of you're getting outdueled by Mr. Man who likes to receive too many massages inappropriately, and you come out there and you only have a total of 67 passing yards as a team stat because of the negative stats you had on top of that. But you individually had 82 passing yards as a $250 million heir. I think it's much trash, and I hope that next week Cole has a slide for us to click for trash because of moments like these where you played like trash.
Watch me do my thing, baby. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I channeled Deshaun Watson. I'm sorry, man. That was wrong of me. We're gonna have more fun about this game later on in this show because there was no excuse for the Bengals to play the way they are. They are one of the 3 supposed contending teams in AFC to go to the Super Bowl. Not with that performance, because that was horrible. That was too trash. So, yeah, 24-3. The Browns still are the Bengals' kryptonite in Cleveland. For whatever reason, they just play horrible in that stadium. 2 of the 4 25 p.m. games. The Broncos under the new regime of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. We'll talk about him a little later. He seemed to do okay. Unfortunately, the Broncos still took an L to the Raiders, 17-16. Now, I can look at so many other places for the Broncos, but to me, when Mr. Will Lutz missed the extra point, and that turns out to be the deciding point, there you go. Oh, I forgot. Sorry about that. Cool. I agree with you, sir. I agree with you, sir, when you say, piss on you, Joe Burrow. I agree with you. But the Raiders, this is the funny part about it. With the Broncos L, with the Chargers, we'll talk about them a little later. And with the Chiefs L, we talked about earlier, the Raiders are in first place all by them lonesome in the AFC West. Your thoughts, sir?
You know, Will Lutz had some success with New Orleans back in the day,
Yes,
but he definitely was a decisive factor on that game. You know, Russell Wilson learned from his dumpster Pelican-esque play from last year and did a little bit better with protecting the football. He had 2 touchdowns to no interceptions on that day this past week. However, you still played slightly like a dumpster Pelican. I say you played like a half dumpster Pelican because you had 177 passing yards on that day. Who is elite as a former Super Bowl champion? Who is elite and comes out there after having an off year like he had last year and only passes for 177 passing yards? I know someone who's a half dumpster Pelican, and that's Russell Wilson for what he did on that Sunday game, because 17-16, you as an elite Super Bowl champion quarterback, let's ride, baby. How about let's ride it into the ground? Because that's what you're doing when you show up and you play the Raiders, who've had their own turmoil over the past few seasons, and come out there and play a Jimmy G who only had 200 passing yards on the day, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. That one interception should be what cost them the game. You shouldn't have put the game in the kicker's hands, Will Lutz. It's not even his fault whether he missed the kick or not. It's not even his fault, because if you were so elite, you wouldn't have had to put it into the hands of the kicker in the first place. I rest my case. You're a dumpster Pelican.
Well. I mean, in the first game last year, he did that as well. He put it onto the foot of a kicker where they had the ball first and 10 on their own 22, and with 4 minutes to go, and they only advanced it 35 yards, and the kicker had to make a 64-yard field goal to end the game. And of course, he was just 2 yards short. But I digress. Yeah, 17-16, the Broncos take an L to the Raiders at home. And now the Raiders are sitting all alone in first place. We'll talk about what the Chargers did, of course, a little later. We already talked about what the Chiefs did. And now we get to Cool McCain's favorite team, the Eagles. 25-20 victory over the Patriots in in Foxborough. Gillette was not friendly to the offense of the Eagles, although Hurts didn't make the mistake that the Patriots wanted him to make. But he played a game, and so did the rest of the offense. And the defense, they really didn't play the greatest of games. I mean, they allowed Mac Jones to throw for over 100 yards. But you had Darius Slay return a pick for 6, and that was the difference in the game. So we could talk about Mac Jones throwing for 3 touchdowns and over 300 yards. We could talk about the Eagles not finding their offensive rhythm. However, the final score says Eagles 25, Patriots 20. Your thoughts, sir?
I look at this game right here, and Cool McCain, you should be excited that your Eagles won. I'm definitely happy for you. I'm happy that, except for Wise's team, of course, because they had to play the Cowboys, which we'll get to here shortly. All the NFC East teams we won this past weekend. So good for us, except for the Giants. Okay. Happy for you. Now, what I am thinking about, though, is a former NFC East talent who's on the Patriots, who only had 29 rushing yards, averaging 4.1 yards per carry. Why? Because he's Zeke. And that nose ring is weighing him down. That is the mark of a dumpster Pelican when it comes to a football player. When you have the nose ring, all it does is it weighs down your aerodynamics, because you were trying to run a ball and it is throwing you in a different direction, apparently, because when I think of that last play you had last year, you didn't make the right call. And this year,
through the nostril.
Apparently, it throws you. It's like you're in the draft in NASCAR. You go, and the draft throws you off. Your draft gets thrown off because the aerodynamics of your nose. That's why you suck there, Ezekiel Elliott. 29 rushing yards. No. Back to the one thing. I'm happy to see my man Mac and Chi, the quarterback for the Patriots, do his thing with throwing over 300 yards, because you look at that first quarter. I know that Cool McCain and many other Eagles fans were hyped after that first quarter because they were up 16-0. But then you look at what happened in the second quarter with the Patriots getting 2 scores and getting right back into it in the second quarter. After that, the second half looked like a bunch of dumpster Pelicans were inserted in the game, because you couldn't do anything except for score some field goals after that. But when I put it all into perspective and I think about what these teams did out there, I like what Mac and Chi did, but he needs a running game. He has no running game there in New England. And Zeke on paper was supposed to be that running game, but 29 yards, 4 yards per carry, that's some pretty average numbers out there for running back style. And they need more than average at the running back position if they're going to have the success they want to have this year.
So I guess Mac Jones has to harness his chi. Gotcha.
Harness the chi.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Dante, who is an Eagles fan, he says a victory, which they did win Sunday. It's a step closer to a playoff berth. Fly, Eagles, fly. You are correct, sir.
Dante is awesome. I met Dante. I mounted a TV in his house back when I used to do that kind of thing for a job, and that's awesome. how we became friends. Thank you, Dante, for tuning in on Sartoba Media's YouTube channel.
Thank you, brother. VLike83, he says running the football has 2 functions. 1, it puts pressure on the defense and tires them out. And 2, it sets up for possible play action. Plays when the defense starts blitzing. Did you hear that, Dak Prescott? We're not talking about the Cowboys right now. I'm sorry. Dante goes on. And he says all the quarterbacks who got paid this offseason played okay to bad. Don't pay quarterbacks. It's funny because owners are feeling that way about running backs. That's what they're doing. And hey, look, we might have to follow the money, and we might have QBs not get paid because of how they're playing now. Vlog says, look, let's be honest. With all the ring rust after the offseason, week 1 is the week where teams are expected to lay eggs. I'm happy the Blue Stars won, and we will talk about how the Blue Stars did win, but I chalk that game as rust on the Giants. There should be a new division known as the Dumpster Pelican Division.
Hey, but to go back to his previous statement, that's a lot of rust you got to knock off to lose 40-0.
No.
Okay. That's like, that's so much rust, you might as well forfeit the season because you're never going to get all that rust off. There's not enough WD-40 PB Blaster in the world to knock off all that rust because you just left yourselves out to be rode hard and left out in the rain during the offseason if you got that much rust on you to start out week 1. Come on, get together, Victor.
Oh, my gosh. Dante says, look, when you talk about Deshaun Watson, you should have Barry White playing in the background.
Yes, I saw that statement, and he is absolutely right, especially when you were like, come on, baby, what you said earlier. I'm about dying laughing when I heard that because you were spot on with that right as I was trending out with what I was saying, and you brought it right in. It was perfect. We got to make that into a reel. That was a good one.
Show you right. Right. Goes on to say, we're already starting the fire. Look, fire both coordinators. Eagles fly. After week 1, wow. Wow. Well, all right, I get it. It was not their best effort in Foxborough, but still, a win's a win. And of course, cool. Our insider says, look, the Kobe Dean is out and Bradbury is in concussion protocol. Yeah, that game was physical to the point where they took a lot of stuff. The Eagles are physical, but Patriots brought the physicality to them too. He goes on to say whack and cheese, talking about
whack and cheese. Whack and cheese doesn't throw for over 300 yards there, Cool McCain. Come on.
Victor Law says Wise is about to be summoned. He also goes on to say, I'm trying to be gracious because Lord knows the moronic Republic of Cowboys Nation is already acting a fool. And I will talk about how much a fool they already are acting. And cool, Dante, check this show out, Eagles Elite Podcast. If you want to know all things Eagles and all things Eagles on the real, because it sounds like you're a real Eagles fan, that it's not rose-colored sunglasses that you will criticize when they're bad, but you'll hype when they're good. Cool also is the same, brother. You'll enjoy his show. Wednesday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Go ahead, sir.
I take the heat on that. I should have told Dante about that sooner or whatnot. I should have definitely filled him in on Cool show. So my bad, Cool, for not plugging that one. Because with everything I've had going on this year, y'all know about how it took for me to bounce back. But now that you say that, I actually did have a thought that crossed my mind before about saying something to him about it. But I just didn't get around to it. So my apologies for that. But hey, thank you for plugging that because Dante needs to check out that show. Cool definitely brings the fire. He talks about his team, even when they have had their dumpster pelican-like moments. He is harshly on them, just like I am with the Commanders. We are both harsh on our team. We both passionately love our teams. But when they suck and when they play like dumpster pelicans, we give them what they need to hear.
And I love that. I love guys who they love their teams, but when they're bad or when they do something bad, they don't hold back. That's cool, and that is you with the Commands for sure. Now, talking about a team that was bad, how about the Seahawks? Now, for the first half, they were great. They were up 13-7. They go into halftime, and it looked as though the whole team left Lumen Field because the Rams went on a 23-0 second half run on their way to a 30-13 victory. Matthew Stafford, congratulations, 300 yards through the air. Woohoo! And I give you much credit, Sean McVay. You practiced balance, although you did not get 100 yards with 40 carries, but you did balance, and I love that. Geno Smith, you said people not give you receipts, and you were talking all types of ill stuff about, I'm back. Well, you got to prove that you're back because you didn't in this game, and sir, you got to do far better than this. Your thoughts on the Rams Seahawks, sir?
If you guys couldn't tell, I've been biting my lip for like 90 seconds. Cole had a great intro, but I've been waiting. I've been waiting all show to talk about this man, Geno Smith, and the Seahawks. You thought I was going to bring the fire before with a dumpster Pelican-esque play. This man had the year that he had last year. And you think about what Geno Smith did. All that hype, the year and the career of what he's had in the NFL comes out here this year and has 16 of 26. Now, the completions aren't the problem. The 112 yards are what the problem is on that amount of completions and attempts. What in the father are you doing out there when you are having 112 yards on 16 completions? Not to mention that you only had 10 miscues when it came to your attempts, but 112 yards. And yeah, congratulations. Congratulations on the one touchdown and the fact that you didn't throw an interception. But all that hype about you being the guy for Seattle, and you threw for 112 yards, what is up with that? Then your running game on top of that. Kenneth Walker III does okay. 64 yards, averaging 5 yards a carry. But other than that, you had nothing else to balance that because, you know, your other running backs, you had one that had 3 of 11 yards and carries, and the other one was 2 of 4. You have to have some support when it comes to the running game. Not one guy can do it all. We've seen the most successful teams have a 1-2 punch, and in some cases have even a 1-2-3 punch, okay? Because sometimes they use their running backs like a fullback because we have pretty much seen the fullback position go obsolete for many years. But at times you have dual running backs put in there and you have them forming what would be a fullback running back 1-2 punch like back in the day in certain formations. But you can't even do that with this kind of team when you have them playing like they did at the running back position. That was absolutely horrible type of play from the Seahawks yesterday from a team that we are not used to seeing that horrible kind of play. We've seen more strong of a defense from them over time. But even Russell Wilson didn't have just 112 passing yards on an opening day start in my recollection. 112 passing yards on 16 completions. I could have done better than that. You could have done better than that. Aaron Rodgers could have done better than that on one leg. Okay? So put it all in perspective when you think about the style of play from Geno Smith and the Seahawks. You got to do better than that because the Rams are not that great of a team. And they beat you 30-13. Come on now.
What makes it even worse, Geno Smith had 104 yards going into halftime.
Yes.
He only threw for 8 yards in the second half. So that's what makes it even worse. Oh, my gosh. 8 second half yards in the air. Good Lord, man. I thought you were an NFL caliber QB. Dante talking about his Eagles. He says, look, they look terrible, and Dina's on IR, but no targets to Dallas Goedert, which I agree. I think that needs to stop because they need to target him. And just so Hurts could breathe both with scrambling and in the passing game, and it would probably free up A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith too. But, yeah, no targets to Dallas Goedert. Yeah. And cool. You got another fan, brother. And you will not be disappointed, Dante. Trust me. Cool says, look, Dean got hurt early, and that's why there were so many miscommunications. Oh, and he also says Geno wrote back at halftime. He wrote back home at halftime. Oh, and tell me your secret. Tell me all your precious secrets. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me stop. This is a football show. This is a music show. V-Like83 says, Geno Smith is exactly what Geno is. An albatross-sized dumpster pelican. Oh, my gosh.
I love how people are loving my dumpster pelican, too.
I love it, too. I think it's great. And Cool also talked about the Eagles. He said Swift needs to block somebody, too. Yes. That would help Hurts a whole lot. But, yes, the Seahawks, come on, man. The Rams should not be beating you, period, at home, let alone beat you by 17. Inexcusable. From one inexcusable performance to another. Chicago, the Bears, who many have said that they're going to go 12-5 this year. And I saw earlier today that Justin Fields is going to be the MVP of the NFL. Lost to the Packers 38-20. The Packers with Jordan Love threw pretty well. He threw for almost 250 yards. He played under control. I love that. It looks like the offense is understandably going through Aaron Jones, which it should. The defense actually came up big. They sacked Justin Fields 4 times, so that was good. But again, 12-5 for the Bears with what team? Sorry, I could go on forever, but forget that. Your thoughts on the Packers' victory over the Bears?
I like what they've done with Aaron Jones has always kind of been this week more of a hybrid back, where he's plays the running back position, but he's also like a slot wide receiver or a hybrid wide receiver. That's why I call him the hybrid running back, because he's the dual threat, right?
Right.
But the concerning aspect that I have to this whole thing is the amount of rushing yards he had. He only had 41 rushing yards. That just goes to prove you played a very bad team the other day when you played the Bears, because on 41 rushing yards, and especially when your next higher rushing back was at 22 yards for Patrick Taylor Jr., I'm concerned about that, because that's not going to last this entire year, and you're not going to be able to have the ball in Jordan Love's hands where, in every single game. You got lucky with who you had for your first matchup. And the fact that you got 3 touchdown passes, that's not going to fly against the average team in the NFL. It's not going to work. Now, he did make some good decisions. Jordan Love was smart with the ball, didn't have any turnovers as far as interceptions goes, had 3 touchdown passes, threw for nearly almost 250 yards, 245 yards. I like what I saw out of Jordan Love, and he definitely learned from Aaron Rodgers during that time frame. However, that the Aaron Jones had 85, 86 receiving yards, I believe, when it came to what he did. But what's really concerning me is the fact that they have a very lack of running game. And if they don't improve on that, this is going to be like their Super Bowl moment in this first week of the year, where we'll get to the Sunday night game here shortly, where I feel like this could be a Super Bowl moment for that team too. But
I agree with you. I agree with you. The running game needs to be better. A.J. Dillon, I know that's a big boy. 13 carries, 19 yards, unless you're just trying to feed him the rock to score touchdowns in the goal line situation or get 3rd and 1s. Nah. And Cool says, was the game even that close? You already know the answer to that question. It's a big fat no. It's a big fat no. And yes, V-Lock, who, yes, he's a Cowboys fan, but he's a Chicago native. He says, if Geno Smith is the size of an albatross, the Bears are the size of a B-2 Spirit. Oh, gone. Well, with that mic drop, we'll go on to actually the Monday night game where the Bills and the Jets played. 22-16 in overtime, the only overtime game of week 1. The Jets over the Bills with a Xavier Gibson walk-off game-winning 65-yard punt return. Josh Allen, we will talk about the big thing in the game later in the show, but Josh Allen, the other big part of this game, 3 picks and a lost fumble. This is the first game of his 6th year, and he is force-feeding balls to Stephon Diggs. Explain to me what we saw last night, please.
In this game right here, it was very tough to see Aaron Rodgers go down. All the hype that we saw with Hard Knocks, the drama of just him exiting Green Bay, getting to New York in itself. And then on 4 plays, he had 4 plays in that first drive before he's knocked out. That was the biggest tide shift to any game we've seen in this entire first week, and potentially this entire season, because you just changed the whole trajectory of what this team was supposed to do for this entirety of this year. Now you're back to square one, where you were at before you even made the trade. The good thing is you don't really have to give much compensation up to the Packers as a result, because he's not going to play any amount of snaps that were required for them to give up another pick for this year, or at least another high projected pick for this year. The bad news is you lose your starting quarterback for the entirety of the year. And the Bills laid an egg against Zach Wilson. When you think about going into overtime, you hung in there with Zach Wilson. Why? Because your starting quarterback, a man who has had so much hype on him, a man who has done some things, but at the same time has had a little bit of overpraise in certain aspects, that man threw 3 interceptions last night. Had it not been for those 3 interceptions, the game would not have ended the way that it did. The Bills would have won that game. Josh Allen gave that quarterback, Zach Wilson, the victory last night and boosted the confidence for him, because not every game is going to end that way for the Jets. You deserve to lose that game, not just because Aaron Rodgers was hurt and knocked out at the beginning, but because the momentum was not on your side because of that, for one. But Josh Allen's 3 interceptions are what kept you in the game into the very end for you to even go to overtime in the first place. So you need to be thanking Josh Allen and sending him thank you tweets today, because had it not been for him, you would not have gotten that victory in week 1, because it doesn't look like many more victories are coming your way after losing Aaron Rodgers for the season.
Oh, man. And to make matters worse, the first pass that Zach Wilson threw in the game was an interception. But yes, I agree. The Bills should have won going away. It did not happen. And the Bills, we'll talk later about them a little bit. But the Bills, along with the Bengals and the Chiefs, you just have to say, well, anyway.
And Breece Hall saved the game too.
Congrats to Breece Hall coming back off of injury, 100 yards on only 10 carries. Actually, over 100 yards on only
averaging 12.7 yards per carry.
Great.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, he looked great. I was happy to see him on the field, and he did his thing.
He had less touches than Dalvin Cook. He had less touches than Dalvin Cook. Had 10 carries for 127 yards. Although Dalvin Cook has been there less than a month and is trying to figure out this playbook, which from what they said on the reports, he's been figuring out pretty decently. But 13 carries for only 33 yards, 2.5 yards per carry. He is not channeling into that inner self that was playing with the Vikings not too long ago before he got hurt. So we're going to have to see more. But, hey, if they can get Dalvin Cook going and they have that 1-2 punch with the running backs there in New York, and you have Zach Wilson not turn the ball over, because after that first pass that you mentioned, he didn't have any more turnovers after that. He didn't have any more turnovers. He was 14 to 20 after that for 140 yards, averaging 10 yards per pass. That I don't have a problem with. It looks like he learned from Aaron Rodgers during this past offseason. But he's not going to produce what Aaron Rodgers would have if Aaron Rodgers would have been healthy and in every single game.
No.
So you've got to make up for that now with having that 1-2 punch at the running back with not only Breece Hall, but Dalvin Cook, and keeping them healthy. But at the same time, in order to do that, you're going to have to improve that offensive line somehow, because they played horrible. That offensive line is the reason why Aaron Rodgers got hurt last night, and is the reason why he's out for the rest of the season.
Oh, yeah, they allowed 3 sacks, and the injury. And we'll talk about that injury a little later in the show. Cool. Nicola. Sorry, I had to do that. He's dropping another bomb. Vicola says Jordan Love had a decent debut, and this was the first opening day start. Again, like with Sam Howell, Jordan Love had started other games. He just never started opening day. So he had a decent debut, while Justin Fields fumbled the football with barely anyone touching him. The O-line of the Bears has upgraded from Walmart mannequins to Target mannequins. Beautiful. Dante says, look, if you are the Jets, do you call Dallas about Trey Lance? Oh, Lord. Don't. No, please, no. No. I don't think they want that. Seriously. But the Bills, you should be ashamed of yourselves. That should have been an easy W, but you made it a very hard L. And the game last night looked similar to the game that you played last year when you were in MetLife. And you can't have these games. You cannot have these types of games against teams, in this case, teams you should easily defeat. Because a Zach Wilson-led team you should easily beat with the talents you have. But it shows, again, that you're just not ready. And it's unfortunate. It's vastly unfortunate. Oh, speaking of vastly unfortunate, let's stay in the same stadium and go to the Sunday night game, which was all wet. And the Giants were also all wet, but they did great. First drive, it looked wonderful. They moved down the field. It made the Cowboys look small. They played bully ball with them, but then the Cowboys stopped them. They line up for a field goal, and then the field goal gets blocked. The Cowboys return it for a touchdown, and then the rest was history. The Cowboys mollywhopped the Giants 40-0. Oh, Lord. The Cowboys. So they sacked Daniel Jones 7 times. They forced 5 fumbles, although they only recovered 1, but they forced 5 fumbles. They got 2 picks. It was just an absolute dumpster fire. And I guess you can call the whole staff, along with the players of the Giants, dumpster Pelican Central. Goodness gracious. Look, but credit to the Cowboys defense. They played out of their minds, and they were wonderful. From opening whistle to final gun, they did their thing. Your thoughts on the mollywhopping that the Cowboys put on the Giants Sunday night?
There was a lot of history that surrounded this past weekend in New York. First off, how many times have we seen 2 primetime games between a Sunday and a Monday night being played at the same stadium?
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall
Rare,
that.
if ever.
Rare, yeah, I don't recall that. And if it did, it's been quite some time. That's pretty historic for one, and especially for what transpired between both games. You look at the factor of time of possession. Usually when you have a time of possession win, you win the game. How many times have we seen a team have more time with the ball, with the time of possession, and get shut out?
Shut out.
And not only that, by freaking 7 touchdowns nearly. Because it is, yeah. So, wow. So nearly 6 touchdowns. Okay. So when I put it, okay. 2 points shy of that. Pretty much you were a safety away from losing by 6 touchdowns. Okay. Putting it all together, and I think about that, and the Giants having the ball for 32 minutes of this game, 33 minutes, but my apologies, 33 and a half. Okay. Throwing 2 interceptions, having a fumble. The penalties, they lost the battle with that too. 6 penalties of 72 yards. But Dak Prescott, he was not a big factor in this win
at all.
It was the defense that carried the Cowboys to, and this could be one of the greatest defenses we've ever seen of all time if they play like they did this first week throughout the whole course of this season without
100.
missing a beat. Because I don't like to speak of the Cowboys in this high value, but I have to give credit where credit is due. And they played out of their minds, like Cole said. However, you're not going to get very far. This could be a regular season championship and not do much in the playoffs if you do not get that quarterback play straight. And putting Trey Lance in for Dak Prescott is not going to be the answer either. You have got to get Dak back to that star quarterback caliber level that he has shown flashes of in the past. He can do it if he remains consistent. And that's the thing with the NFL. Consistency is key. It's the not for long league. And he's been at that quarterback position for quite some time. And it could be, if he doesn't get together and improve on that, you cannot be having 143 passing yards and expect to be the long-term quarterback when you're having 143 passing yards with a defense like that. You should be throwing for 200 to 300 yards a game, or at least converting on the touchdowns aspect, because you as it yourself didn't even contribute to that in this game. You had 0 touchdowns this entire game. You didn't even have a rushing touchdown.
Not a rushing touchdown either.
Yeah, so you didn't contribute to this game at all. So if you don't get together at the quarterback position with all the hype and all the money that's been thrown at you throughout the course of your career, then they're going to have to make some serious decisions at the quarterback position, because you finally got the defense the way you want it. You got pieces around you on offense, but if your quarterback has 143 passing yards. You cannot expect to do what you did week 1 throughout the course of the entire season this year.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, sir. I agree with all that because, yes, Dak. Victor actually said it just as well as you did, too. He says Dak was serviceable, didn't turn the ball over, and kept some forward progress. And I said it to many people. I said, look, all Dak did was what he was supposed to do, just protect the ball. He didn't do anything spectacular. He just was a game manager. And that's all he could. That's all he really needed to do. But yes, I agree with you. If he plays game manager type ball all 17 games, expect more L's to come your way because that's not going to happen. And Dante, being the Eagles fan that he is, when he warms Drew's heart and saying this too, oh Lord, here we go again. It's our year. We them boys. Hold up. We them boys. Just for them to lose later. Giants, I'm glad y'all got blown out. Oh, and Victor, file this under your moronic Republic of Cowboys Nation file. So the game was 33-0. We were just getting ready to go into the fourth quarter. And I'm in a group where there's some Cowboys fans, but basically there's a lot of people who live in Dallas. And right after the Cowboys scored a touchdown to go up 40-0, I get, doggone it, I wish I had the quote. But I had the quote, but I wish I had the quote the graphic. But he actually said, and I'm not joking, quote, I'ma call it right now. We gonna go all the way this year. All the way. Close quote. And so all I said was ... put ellipses on his behind. I said, yeah, to the couch in January. I'm like, you ain't gonna go all the way. And plus I said to him as well, I would agree with this if your offense plays no downs at all. If your offense don't play it down, your team can go to the Super Bowl because that defense is good enough to get you there. But that offense is going to hold you back. And if they have that type of performance, it's going to hold them back again. And they're going to get to a January game where they actually have that type of performance on offense, but it isn't good enough. And then they will go home before they get to the NFC Championship game for the 28th straight year. I'm just speaking facts here. But that Cowboys defense, they're lethal. So, yeah, kudos to them. They played a great game, 40-0, final score, beating their rivals in the dirt like they didn't belong on the field. But two teams that did belong on the field with each other, they are our game of the week. And that is in SoFi Stadium, the Chargers hosting the Dolphins. It was a back-and-forth affair. 7 lead changes happened. And two things were impressive that I saw. The Chargers on the Chargers end, they actually performed balance. 40 runs and 33 passes. And they gained 200 yards on the ground. But unfortunately for them, Justin Herbert was sacked 3 times, 2 of them on the final drive. And then on the Dolphins end, although you did have Tua going for still 466 yards in the air, and Tyreek Hill going for 215 in the air with 2 touchdowns receiving, that defense again allowed over 200 rushing yards. So there's a lot of pluses and there's a lot of minuses. So what is your takeaway in our game of the week?
Tua and Tyreek Hill are a dynamic duo of a tandem when it comes to what they're going to do this year if both of them stay healthy. You think about Tyreek Hill getting 215 yards of what Tua put together in this past weekend. He's a huge part of Tua's success. Is Tua had 466 yards and was trying to flirt. It looked like going into halftime with the amount of yards, winning like 267 yards at halftime. He was flirting with Dan Marino's all-time record of like 500 and some for the entire game. So when I think about that, Tua wanted to shut up the haters this past weekend because of what happened last year. He was getting knocked around, wasn't healthy last year. The decisions that were made by the staff and this, that, and the third, when it comes to all that stuff, he wanted to shut up the haters, and he did. 466 yards, Tyreek Hill showing up and shelling out. Definitely the biggest takeaways that I have from this game, because had it not been for what they put forth, they would have lost that game to the Chargers. because they only won by 2 points. It took Tyreek Hill eclipsing over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns contributing to get that victory in this
Just to get
past
the W.
weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
the defense did okay, but because you had Javon Holland that contributed with 2 tackles and 4 assists. When I think about that, but you still give up 34 points. I can't give so much praise to the defense. This game was won on the shoulders of 2 men, being Tua and Tyreek Hill.
The Cheetah. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's who won the game for him, because it definitely wasn't their defense, and they got to do a lot better for sure. And that was the game of Week 1 in the 2023 NFL season. And before we take our first break, which will be a short one, VLock83 says, "Oh God, yep, that is definitely representative of the moronic republic. Like, come on, it's Week 1." I got a message like that, Cole, with 10 seconds after the game was over. 10. I feel for you, bro. And I seriously, for you, for my man Ben Southern, for my man King Ivan Dawkins, and even Dietz, you all actually are you all similar to how Drew is with the Commanders and Coolest with the Eagles. You all are critical about your team, and you don't wear rose-colored glasses. But you all have too many who do, and it is ridiculous. And I don't know how you can be a fan of that team with the amount of fans who are rose-colored glasses, and they can't see any of the funk that the Cowboys put forth.
But those of us who call it like that, even the Cowboys fans who will call it that way will admit that the Cowboys fan base as a whole is the worst out of all of the teams you just mentioned with the rose-colored glasses. They are absolutely the worst.
I've heard Cowboys fans say that. Dante says, "Look, me and my brother are going to see the Dolphins Commanders game." Wow, cool, bro. That's cool, man. I hope you have a good time, because you might be seeing a lot of points being put up.
Yeah.
A lot of points. Well, that actually completes our initial.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on 2. Ready? Break.
And on mentality, our brother Wise LFA had this to say before the 40-0 victory, I should say defeat in his case, of the Giants to the Cowboys.
I fired the first shot because I was tired of him sending these memes about the Cowboys. So I fired the first few shots.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be able to win this weekend to fire some more shots. And yeah. I am petty. I am upset. We are 0-10 the last 10 games. Something has to change. Something has to change. So, Giants, please listen to me. I'm begging you. Win. I need to end this. I need to be able to respond to Cowboy fans and not with my head bowed down. So, let's go, Giants. I'm starting a new thing. Dallas.
Oh, Lord. You can catch Mentality on the Real TV YouTube channel or the Comey Media Incorporated YouTube channel. That show is similar to how this one is. It's exclusively on that and on BS3 Network as well. You can see the television replay of it, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central on every Thursday. Yes, I know I'm going to hear it when we do record this Friday, because it's going to be hilarious. And the guy that he was talking about, that he has a cousin who is a Cowboys fan, and he goes in on Wise, who's a Giants fan, all the time. So,
well, deservingly so for this week. But
and the video goes and spoils on this one. Yes, and he actually said to me today when I talked to him, he said that he's still messaging me today. I'm like, oh no.
and now 0-11.
Yes. 0-11. They have they beaten Dak Prescott ever? I can't remember if they ever have.
I'm not recalling that this time, but now 0-11 is going to stick a lot harder than than them ever beating Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
0-11 is tough. That is a 5.5-year stretch where you have not beaten that team in the division.
Yeah, that is messed up. Hey, Jets, you have a longer streak with the Patriots, and it looks like it's going to continue. I'm sorry, we're not talking about them yet. V-Like-A3 says, "Look, I agree, Sensei Drew. I agree. The moronic republic has hijacked Cowboys fandom. It's been that way, brother, for decades. For decades, it's been that way. Good Lord. Okay, let's get to the scoop." So, unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers, the starting quarterback of the Jets, he went down after play number 4. And just as quickly as the love affair began in New York and Gotham, with Aaron Rodgers' debut on the horizon for the Jets, it has come to an abrupt end because he suffered a torn Achilles and will require season-ending surgery. The team confirmed it earlier today, and the news came as no surprise to the Jets because Coach Robert Saleh said Monday night it just didn't look good. Say a prayer, but it just doesn't look good. My question to you, I even hate saying it, and I'm not the biggest fan of Aaron Rodgers, but I hate saying it though. What does this mean for the Jets going forward?
For this year, their hopes that they had, especially Mr. McCoffey. I'm sorry, but there's the hopes that we all had, that I even had. Because I was putting hype on the Jets, but that just goes to show we can say all we want to until the actual first week of the season starts, because anything can happen. This could have happened week 1.
Mhm.
It could have happened week 17. It could have happened anytime in between. I sound like Dr.
Mhm.
Seuss right now, but that's what really could have happened when it came to this situation. It's very unfortunate because of the hype that was around this team. We had Hard Knocks. We had everything that was hyping this team up to be something special this year. And now with that one play inside the 4th play on the drive that he was a part of, Aaron Rodgers is now done for the season. And Zach Wilson, the biggest reason why they got Aaron Rodgers, because they didn't trust Zach Wilson, or at least not yet. They want to try to hone his skills for the future. And that's what all the buzz is about this past offseason, about how Aaron Rodgers was going to help build Zach Wilson for the future. Well, unfortunately, that's not going to be the case, because, or at least not for this year, as far as him showcasing that on the field for Zach Wilson to watch. Now you're throwing Zach Wilson back into the fire that he came out of, that he was experiencing and having the miscues that he was having last year and beforehand. Now you're basically going to be putting him right back into it. Aaron Rodgers could potentially retire from this situation, because it's going to be a lot for someone who's already going to be turning 40 this season anyway. It's already going to be a lot for him at that age to overcome this type of injury and come back from it. Drew Brees retired at 41. Didn't play, had a great season at 40, but then when 41 got here, he didn't bounce back from it. Aaron Rodgers could potentially have played his last down of football. Not only that, but if he does come back, there's no guarantee that he will be what he was even before he got hurt, because even though the Packers were last year, Aaron Rodgers was okay. He wasn't playing at the MVP caliber level that he was the 2 seasons prior, but he was still playing pretty decent, okay? If he doesn't bounce back from this, if he doesn't, at least come back and have a season like he had last year, when he comes back next season will be it for Aaron Rodgers, if he even makes it that far. Because an Achilles is a tough thing to come back from, and the older you are when it happens, the tougher it is to come back from. Definitely, they are not going to have the type of season they were hoping this year. It's going to be a big question mark on if he'll even be back for 2024.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's going to be tough for him. It would have been tough for him at 29. He's 39, and it's going to be even worse. Yeah, I feel for Jets fan. I feel for Aaron too, and I feel for the Jets organization. The hopes that you all had, because you all were thinking that we legitimately had a shot as Jets fan to see our team make it to the Super Bowl for the first time in 55 years, it literally went all the smoke with a pop of an Achilles of your starting quarterback. And I hate it. I hate it for you all. Great win, but man, was it costly. There was a piece of history made in the booth of the game. last night. The Jets hosted the Bills. Of course, we talked about it earlier, the 22-16 victory of the Jets at the hands of the Bills. The history was Joe Buck and Troy Aikman calling the game. And with that broadcast, the duo surpassed my favorite team of all time, Pat Summerall and John Madden, for the most ever seasons for a national football broadcasting duo. Now, they have been doing it ever since week 1 of the 2002 season. So this marks year number 22 for them. And it's been a wonderful partnership. I've actually enjoyed them. And I really hope that this continues. With that being said, how long do you see this pair lasting until one of them decides to step away from the booth?
At least 3 more years. I see them doing it for at least 25. I could easily see them, as long as everything works out for them both individually, hopefully, knock on wood with that. But I could see them easily do this for 25. Potentially, if they do it for another 8, do it for 30 total years. That would be a pretty cool task to have.
Mhm.
And if you did that, you'd be going into the 2030 season or 2031 season. So that would be
Right.
a pretty cool task to have 30 years of the same partnership consecutively as well. You move some networks around. You're not with the same original network you started with, because they started with Fox, right?
Yeah, they started with Fox.
Yeah, so you have moved around, but that just goes to show how much you appreciate each other and the type of work you do together, because you didn't leave one behind. You both went to the same exact networks and kept the partnership going and kept the consecutive streak going. I think that was a pretty cool historic moment that we got to see last night.
Yeah, and I'm happy for them because we get a chance to actually celebrate good broadcasting. Now, people might have a lot of things bad to say about both. I don't. It takes a lot to actually do these broadcasts. And so they've been doing it for over 2 decades strong. And yeah, I hope I see them for much longer too. I'm thinking it's going to be a clean number 2, like 25 or 32. So I see this lasting at least 3, and it might be up to 8. And I agree with you. I think it's a great pairing. Michael Irvin. He returned to the NFL Network this past weekend after being suspended from the network since February, when a woman accused him of improper conduct at a hotel she worked for at the site or near the site of Super Bowl 57. Now, the Dallas Morning News reported on Sunday that the Hall of Famer receiver settled his $100 million defamation lawsuit against Marriott International and the woman. With said settlement completed, NFL Media, the company that operates NFL Network, lifted its indefinite suspension of the former Dallas Cowboys star, and the amount of the settlement has not been disclosed. Now, my question to you, sir, is how exciting is NFL analysis when Michael Irvin is on television?
Yeah, Michael Irvin's pretty exciting character to see on TV at times, but he lost a lot of credibility with me many, many years ago when he was caught for smoking the rocks before he was doing things. Yep, and all that too, and snorting them too, and doing it around the times that he was supposed to be on air and causing conflicts within his professional realm. So I honestly don't have a huge take on Michael Irvin. It's still good to see he still gets opportunities, but he only gets the opportunities that he gets because of the type of NFL career that he had. If he was a person like you or me, who are just a regular person within media, he wouldn't get all these opportunities after the amount of mistakes he's made. So he should be counting his lucky stars that he still has a job, and a reputable job at that.
I agree. I think that if he wasn't the playmaker, yes, he would. Yeah, he would not be seeing any more action in front of the camera. I agree with you, but I am happy for him. But yes, he's had a long since documented drug problem. In fact, he was the leader of the White House, and no, I'm not talking about the place of the residence of the president in Washington. No, they actually had a house in Dallas that was called the White House, and it was not called the White House because the house was white. It was called the White House because it was white. He and a few Cowboys were just eating up the nose candy. So yes, he's had a problem ever since then. And I think what you alluded to was when he had an issue at ESPN and he didn't settle it until after. And I think I heard Troy Aikman talk about that one time. But yeah, I can understand how you would be. Okay, I'm done. I can understand that. But that's enough of the scoop. Let's get to these dogs, shall we? Oh, yes, the dog of the week. And I'm glad that we are at this part of the program. Sir, which guy impressed you this week in week number 1 of the NFL season?
Actually happened in last night's game, Cole. A former Super Bowl champion who used to play with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, now in his second year with the New York Jets. A man by the name of Jordan Whitehead, who had 3 interceptions in last night's game, picking off the Bills starting quarterback, Mr. Allen, 3 times, picking off Josh Allen 3 separate times within the game to give the Jets the direction of momentum towards a victory. So my number 1 dog of the week this week is Jordan Whitehead of the New York Jets.
Good choice, man. Good choice. Mine is not quite as probably elaborate, but I actually had to give credit to this dog. Look, Tua Tagovailoa, and it's not really because he threw for 466 yards. It's more for the fact that he suffered 3 concussions within a single football season, 2 within 4 days of one another. And he still finds a way to get out there. And he still has the nerve to be under center and take shrapnel and dodge pass rushers and make sure that he does not draw contact and get injured. So I give him mad credit. And the 466 passing yards did not hurt. But yes, you played like a dog this week. You are one of the grand champions. Honorable mention those 11 on the defensive end for the Dallas Cowboys. You all were dogs collectively. But Tua, you are the main dog this week for me, my man. Keep at it and protect yourself, bro. Please protect yourself. And those are our grand champs. Ready to hang with some fellas who know football? Let's ride. LC Muscles 28.
I think they're the most overrated defense in the league.
Steel Sermon.
We did not trail for a single second.
Tiny Tim.
McCarthy is a bonehead.
A Pizzle 90.
I'm going with my boys. Fins up, baby.
Get ready for the 4 Horsemen of Pick'ems. Every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on YouTube. Welcome back to Total Football Talk with Drew Willingham, or D Willie. I am Cole Johnson. The commercial you just saw, shout out to our boy A Pizzle 90. Wonderful show. You can see it every Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern on the A Pizzle 90 YouTube channel. The 4 Horsemen of Pick'ems. Wonderful brothers. Love them all. Now, to the games for this week. Let's look at the featured ones, shall we? We will start with the Jaguars hosting the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites. The kickoff is at 1 p.m. And we'll start with the Chiefs. Now that they have Chris Jones on the defensive side, the defense didn't look like they had the issue because they only gave up 14 points to the Lions. Can the offense, and I can't believe I'm actually asking us about the Chiefs offense, can the Chiefs rebound from that lackluster offensive performance?
They can. And they can do that against this Jaguars team who, you know, if it wasn't for some more last second heroic, I wouldn't say last second, but, you know, fourth quarter heroic, fourth quarter great play out of that team, they wouldn't have won that game against the Colts this past weekend. And they're going to have a harder matchup against the Chiefs than they did against the Colts, because the Chiefs are going to be coming to that game mad that they lost that first game against the Lions anyway. They're going to come in there with more hype behind them and more fire to win this game than the Jaguars did, because the Jaguars now have 2 consecutive games. Well, I wouldn't say of 2 consecutive victories. Is that playoff victory they had last year. They had to come back and rebound back from being down all game.
Mm-hmm.
Similar aspects in this past week. They're not going to be able to afford to be down by 7 to 10 points and then try to come back against the Kansas City Chiefs team. So I feel like it's going to be easier for the Chiefs to get the win than it will be for the Jaguars to do so on their end.
Good analysis there. And I got to look at the record. But I know Andy Reid, well, definitely with buys, but I think this Chiefs team rarely ever loses a second straight game. They normally seem to rebound, have the fire in their belly to prove that what we saw the week before was a straight up aberration and a fluke. So yeah, I agree with you. I think they can rebound. And I don't think it is dependent on if Travis Kelce gets healthy. I don't think it's even dependent on that. I think the unit can play better. And they just didn't last Thursday for whatever reason.
Got Chris Jones back too.
Yes.
So depending on how much of a factor he'll be in this game or how much playing time he'll have at all, just him being back in the locker room is a boost to this team as well. So there's a lot more of a dynamic shift when it comes for the Chiefs this week 2 matchup than it does for the Jaguars, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Chris Jones is a tone setter for that team. You can say he's a defensive leader, but I actually think you're underselling his importance on the team if you just say he's a defensive leader or the defensive leader. To me, he's one of the leaders on the team, and at times I think he is the leader of the team. At times. Obviously, the straw that stirs the drink with the Chiefs wears number 15, but there's times number 95 leads that team too. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a huge boost for the team. And actually, it would be a huge boost for the offense, even though he plays on the defensive line. On the other side of things, the Jaguars. The one thing that troubled me was the fact that this past Sunday, they did not play 60 minutes, as evidenced by the third quarter in their 31-21 victory over the Colts on the road. With their home opener, can the Jaguars keep their focus and play a full 60 minutes?
They can. They need to be able to do that consistently throughout the entirety of the games. Like you said, you can't stop in the middle of the game, the third quarter, right after halftime, whatever the case may be, and expect to win this game against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are not going to allow you to do that and then claw your way back into it like you did this past week and like you showcased at points during the previous season. They do need to get that under control before not only just this week 2 matchup, but for the rest of this season, if they want to be able to build on the success that they had last year, get to the playoffs again, and potentially get a little bit further ahead, because that type of style of play is not going to get you far along in a 17-game season.
No. And I agree with you. If you play up and down or you play with lapses, there's too many good teams in NFL that will take advantage of that. Even the average teams will take advantage of that, and you'll walk out that building with an L, whether it's your own or your opponent's home stadium. So, yes, I agree with that. I think they can, but they need to, especially with a team like the Chiefs, because you got to play 64 minutes to beat them. With that said, what is your prediction in this game?
This right here, I think I have the Chiefs winning by a touchdown. Chiefs are going to win this game by a touchdown. It's not going to be out of hand or anything, but I feel like they're going to win this game because the Jaguars are just not quite ready to be able to stick with an elite team such as the Chiefs, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's just how I feel going into this week 2 matchup.
I'm with you. There's part of me that really believes that they aren't ready for prime time yet. I think this is the year where they have to learn they got to be ready for prime time. And if they decide that they're going to have to put the pedal to the metal. Otherwise, I just don't see it. I see the Chiefs winning, and I think I like that. I like that spread 7. That sounds about right. That does sound about right. Going to another 1 p.m. kickoff game, the Ravens and the Bengals. So the Bengals have their home opener. They're favored by 3.5. For the Ravens, what in the world can they do on offense to be more cohesive?
Well, when you look at what they did in this past week, and with now the fact that they are they don't have J.K. Dobbins, that's a big blow going in this game right here. When everything that he would have contributed coming back to the injury that he had, there was a lot of praise on what type of impact that he was going to have on this team, and unfortunately, we didn't get to quite to see that come into perspective, especially against a team that was supposed to have a lot of hype behind them, being the Bengals. Lamar Jackson last week with 169 passing yards. That's not going to fly. Well, it might if Joe Burrow shows up and has 82 passing yards again. So this week's going to be a tribute to see which one of these two quarterbacks really watch the film and really learn from their mistakes this past year. But it takes more than just, not the past year, but this past week. And it takes not only that, but your offensive line learning from their miscues. And you're going to have other players around you step up if you're going to be the Ravens and actually get this victory against the Bengals, because you're playing a different team. You played a terrible team this past week that you should have won, being the Houston Texans, in comparison to what the Bengals have been over the course of the past 2 years, going to consecutive AFC championship games and going to a Super Bowl in one of those years. Okay. So the Bengals overall are nowhere close on paper to what the Houston Texans are. So you're playing a tougher team this week. You're not going to be able to get away with the same things that you got away with playing the Texans. And the Bengals, on the other hand, when it comes to playing this team, are not going to be able to do what they did this past week, because they were proven that they got beaten. And now you're playing against the Ravens. You have a chance of potentially going 0-2 if you're the Bengals, if you don't clean a bunch of things up from what you had this past weekend.
I agree. And it's funny that we're talking about the Ravens as if they lost last week, but they actually won. But defensively, they did pretty solid. But offensively, they just weren't solid. You would have thought offensively they played as if they were to lose the game, and I think they have to go into this week preparing as if they did, because I think that's how lackluster they were on offense. Now, you mentioned the Bengals and the possibility of them going 0-2. Now, what do the Bengals have to do to not start this season with 2 losses?
They have to get more than 82 passing yards. They have to move the ball around, because thinking about what Joe Burrow did in that game on Sunday, it's atrocious when you think about that. Not only that, but your leading receiver had 39 receiving yards for the entire day, being Jamar Chase. And Joe Mixon had 56 rushing yards altogether, which is what we were talking about earlier. So when in your next leading rusher being 12 rushing yards, and I put all that in perspective and I think about it, you have to improve those numbers. You have to have a running game established around you. You also have to get your leading receiver, Jamar Chase, more touches on the game, because he had 5 receptions, but he only had 39 yards of those receptions. All those 7.8 yards are no slouch type numbers. He needs twice the amount of receptions at least to have more production and to get more points, because you literally just lost by 3 touchdowns because you weren't spreading the ball around. You weren't having a rushing attack. And not only that, when it comes to the overall team's stats, you were 2 of 15 on third down. You need to improve your third down efficiency. It probably should be in the top 3 of things that you should do for this week. You need to go have a better efficiency on third down than 2 of 15. That is terrible. You're not going to win against the Ravens if you don't improve on that there, Bengals.
No, and if I were the Ravens, I would probably salivate at that number. To that execution rate of third down, 2 of 15. Yeah, I would love that if I were them. Who do you have in this one?
I think Kevin McAllister, lookalike, a.k.a. Joe Cool, Joe Burrow, loses his 2nd straight game of the year, and the Ravens find a way to get it done. The Ravens, historically, for almost 30 years of their existence, have been known for a defensively sound team, okay? There hasn't even been a handful of times that we could say that there has been a great offense on the Ravens team throughout their entirety of their career, their franchise's tenure in Baltimore, okay? So this has got to change, except for the 1 year where Lamar Jackson was the MVP and he's had flashes in the pan at certain points in years before. He definitely needs to prove that he is worth the money that he spent so much time trying to negotiate on his own, because the amount of numbers he put up in this past week are not going to get it done. But I feel like one way or another, you got Odell Beckham, you got some other pieces around you now on offense. They're going to keep building throughout this year, and we're going to see more passing yards out of Lamar Jackson than what he displayed in this past week with throwing under 200 yards as a starting quarterback for the Ravens. We've got to see an improvement from Lamar Jackson at that spot when it comes to passing yards there for the quarterback position.
I 100% agree with you about Lamar Jackson. I love his athleticism. I love the fact that he has instincts that makes him that make him a difficult football player to deal with in the open field. But as a quarterback, you can pin him down and you can force him into mistakes. And if this game was in Baltimore, I would say the Ravens have this one hands down, and this game probably will end up being ugly. Since this is in Cincy, I think the Bengals will bounce back, and I think they will beat the Ravens. I think both teams will walk out of Paycor Stadium 1-1. But I'm not all that sure about picking the Bengals. But I just think that the offensive woes of the Ravens will catch up with them, and the Bengals are the type of team that can take advantage of that. Yeah. All right, to the lone 4:05 game on the slate this coming Sunday. The Rams have their home opener. They host the 49ers at SoFi. The kickoff, as I said, is at 4:05 Eastern, 1:05 p.m. in LA. How can the 49ers continue to diversify their offense?
Brock Purdy needs to continue to build on what he did this past week, but I feel like he can do it. They are going to do it, and they're going to get the win in this next upcoming game.
Ooh, he goes straight. Okay. Well, since you don't think the Rams can win, do you think it's possible for them to keep up on both sides of the ball with the 49ers?
Oh, they put up 30 points in this past game, but when I look at who they played, being the Dumpster Pelican Seahawks, I don't feel like they're going to have a chance. I feel like it will be the 49ers by 17 points in this game.
Wow, 17. Okay. Well, I agree. I think the Rams will go to 1-1, and I think the 49ers will be 2-0. And that pretty much completes Feature Their Choice.
Join Ryan McCarthy.
I became a Jets fan because Kurt the Frog was my favorite Muppet because he was green, and the Jets wore green. That's how I became a Jets fan.
And Dustin Henry.
ESPN is cashing all in on let's pay a few personalities and we'll just kind of fill in the gaps,
as they walk you through all of the world of sports from their perspective.
The Albany Empire, it's a literal circus.
No credentials required. Where, Ryan, say the tag.
Where you don't need a press pass to talk sports.
Every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. On YouTube and where you can find all podcasts.
All right, let's get to the chopping block real fast, shall we? Kadarius Toney, he took to Instagram last week, and he took some shots at his former team, the Giants. He posted the 40-0 loss that the Giants had, and the shutout loss to the Cowboys. And the caption on his Instagram story read, "Nah, don't get quiet now." Good Lord. Okay. Why is he more worried about his former team than his own faulty hands?
Because the way that he was basically discarded to the Chiefs, it was like he probably feels some type of way about he was discarded like trash out of there. Then leaves and go gets a Super Bowl championship last year, with the Chiefs. Although I feel like that might have been the peak of his career because we saw what he did this past weekend. He definitely didn't really contribute to a Chiefs victory. He kind of helped more contribute towards the Chiefs' defeat with all the drops he was having. So he definitely needs to stop worrying about his previous team and start worrying more about his current team if he wants to actually have a role in that team going forward.
And I hope he does, because if if he has a performance like he did this last Thursday, oh my gosh, his time in NFL will be coming to an end very soon. The Titans broke away from what they normally do in their 16-15 loss to the Saints this past Sunday. They normally like to feed Derrick Henry as a hammer to wear down defenses and then go for the knockout blow in the fourth quarter. However, they decided to have the backup Tyjae Spears take 33 snaps, which was 5 more than Henry in the game, who only saw the field for 28 plays. Now, the head coach of the Titans, Mike Vrabel, said that they were trying to get everybody involved, and he wanted to continue to find ways to get Tyjae and Derrick in there together. Now, why don't the Titans just put Vrabel out of his misery and fire him?
It's kind of a situation, kind of like with Ryan Tannehill, where they're riding the coattails of what he did previously for them. And I think that they're riding the coattails the same for Vrabel when it comes to not only what he did for them, but because the clout he brings as a former player and what he did as a player. I think they're afraid to get rid of him because they might not be able to bring in someone with the same amount of clout in there and feel like they could be getting rid of someone who has the potential to become a great coach. But as we've seen from Bill Belichick, he hasn't been that great since Tom Brady's been gone. So the central part, the integral part of all the success between Mike Vrabel and those associated with that team was and always will be Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II. It is time to let go of Mike Vrabel. It has been time. Unless you can come up with a better reason for what I just said, I feel like it is time to cut Vrabes.
Junior. Russell Wilson, he actually showed some improvement from last year. But he didn't just want to get better after an off-season transformation. He wanted to get started with a win. But they posted 16 points this past Sunday. They didn't turn the ball over. And Wilson was still in search of that elusive one more play, even in that game, as this was the 7th L that the Broncos have taken at the hands of the Raiders. Now, my question to you is this past Sunday's performance enough to get him out of the NFL doghouse?
Nope. He still played like a half a dumpster Pelican, as I alluded to earlier, and he is still in the doghouse. Halfway in, halfway out. You're still in there. You're a dumpster Pelican. You're still on the hot seat there, Russell Wilson. I'm sorry.
Oh, my gosh. How is it a half of a... Never mind. And now we get to the part of the show where we offer our Snowflake of the Week. This is, of course, an ignominious award. And to kick things off, Drew, who is your snowflake for this week?
Because I have a heart, it's not Aaron Rodgers, okay? It's not Aaron Rodgers this week. But it is someone who is at the quarterback position. Someone who I spoke very lowly about earlier. And that is a man who just received a contract for $250 million, a little over that, and you show up and you pass for 82 mother, father, and passing yards. What is going on out here on these fields when it comes to what you are playing like and what kind of caliber you are establishing at the quarterback position? 82 yards. I would love to get $250 million as someone who would throw 82 passing yards per game. That is worse than what an actual backup quarterback, Josh Dobbs, did in his debut for the Arizona Cardinals against my team, the Washington Commies. You think about what Josh Dobbs did against the Commanders. He lost by only 4 points, but he threw for 132 yards for the entirety of the game. You get $275 million, and you threw for 82 2 yards. You are the snowflake of the week. You deserve to be a snowflake for the entire year after that. You are the snowflake of week 1. They're Joe Cool, Joe Terrible, Joe Burrow. I had so much hype for you before, but after 82 yards, I have to give it to you for snowflake of the week and against a team known as the Cleveland Browns. You are the snowflake of the week. That's what you get. That is your punishment, Joe Burrow.
Not JoJo. Not Joe Cool. Oh, no. Wow. Yeah. Well, you'll be glad to know that our snowflake resides on the same team. Now, you chose the quarterback. I will choose the number 1 wide receiver target of the Bengals, Jamar Chase. And why do I elect him as such? Because he had the nerve to opine after the 24-3 loss, quote, "We lost to a bunch of elves," close quote. Now, he ran off at the mouth. He called the secondary of the Browns elves and that they can execute all sorts of things against them. Well, like a partner just said, 82 yards over the air throughout the whole game. You executed very little. So, Mr. Chase, let's get this straight, sir. You're still angry. You lost to a bunch of elves. So if the Browns are elves, what does that make you? Does that make you and the rest of your team the ground on which the elves walk? Because the elves are low to the ground. The way you all played, you all are much lower than that. So take that, son.
Poppy J.
You got the option to cry for the government. You got the option to protest. You got the option to keep buying. But this is also an option.
Wise El Jefe.
We're the first tech geeks. We're the first gamers. We're the first everything. Everything. Like Gen X's, we are the ones.
BS3 Network proudly presents the crew from the New York boroughs who never wants that smoke. Nah, they want that fire. Poppy J and Wise El Jefe. Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Check your local listings for your viewing and listening pleasure.
The 2-minute drill where we actually get a chance to look at the best of the rest, or all of the rest, of the slate in week 2 of the NFL season for the 2023 season. And we will get started with the Thursday night affair. The Vikings travel to Philly and they play the Eagles. Now, the Eagles are 7.5-point favorites. The kickoff is at 8:15. Your thoughts, sir, and who do you think is going to win this game?
Bunker Stayfield beat the Vikings, and so will Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. They are going to win by 10 points over the Vikings.
Really? Bunker Stayfield. Why are you like this, man? Bunker Stayfield. I agree. Look, Kurt 2 Chainz Cousins will be wearing more chains to weigh him down even further. They'll go 0-2, and the defending NFC champs will go 2-0. So I agree with you. We'll start now with one of the 1 o'clock games. Kickoff is Sunday. The 1-0 Falcons host the 1-0 Packers. Now, the Packers are road favorites at 3 points. Who do you have in this game?
Although the Falcons beat the Panthers in week 1, I am not so high on them in week 2 against the Packers and Jordan Love as I am with what the Packers did in week 1. I have the Packers winning this game by 14 points.
Okay. And actually, I could see that. Like, I see the Packers can win and this going away as well. And I agree with you. The Packers, I think, will have this game, no doubt. The Bills, they'll lick their wounds at 0-1. They host the 1-0 Vegas Raiders. Kickoffs at 1 p.m. Even though the Bills lost, they are still 9.5-point favorites. Your pick, sir.
Although I want to punish the Bills because of what they did last night. But at the same time, say the Raiders are going to win a second one in a row would be tough to say when they just won by 1 point over the dumpster Pelican-esque team known as the Denver Broncos. I have the team of the Buffalo Bills rebounding this week, going 1-1 and winning by a score of 10 points.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Bills will take care of the Raiders. I think it won't be a problem. I would love to see the Raiders put up more fight. I don't think they will, considering that they are playing a game that would be 10 a.m. on the way they are on the West Coast. The Lions want to know they host the 0-1 Seahawks. They could get some revenge from last year for their loss in their game when they went to Detroit, kept them from being in the playoffs. Kickoffs at 1 p.m. The Lions are 5.5-point favorites. Your team, sir. Who's your pick?
The streak of kneecaps being destroyed by the mouths of the Detroit Lions will continue as they will win this second week matchup against the Seahawks. As the Seahawks are playing like dumpster Pelicans, they will be punished like dumpster Pelicans, and the Lions will be 2-0 to start off the 2023 season, winning by 10 points.
Another dumpster Pelican reference. Yes, I think I think the Lions will take care of business. I think the Seahawks have nothing for the Lions this year. The momentum they had last year, they will not have it in this game on Sunday. So good luck with the Seahawks. I see the Lions starting the season 2-0. The Titans, they have their home opener as well. They host the Chargers. Kickoffs at 1 p.m. The Chargers, though, are the road favorites by 3. Who do you have in this game?
After that slobber knocker between the Chargers and the Dolphins this past week, there's no way they're going to take the momentum of that heartbreaking loss and come into Tennessee and lose to a team where their quarterback just had 3 interceptions the week before. I have the Chargers winning this game by 24 points.
Oh, wow. 24 points. Ooh, okay. I don't see it that many, but I do see the Chargers winning by at least double digits. The Titans have nothing for them unless they decide to run Derrick Henry 40 times in the game. And since we just talked about the last segment that Vrabel doesn't want to do that, that's not going to happen. Oh, well, that's another L for the Titans. And the Chargers, I think, get on the board with a win. Another 1 p.m. kickoff, the Buccaneers. They host the Bears. 0-1 Bears, 1-0 Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are favored by 3. Who do you have in this game, sir?
Bunker State Field is not going to keep it going, as the Chicago Bears are definitely going to want to rebound from their 18-point deficit to the Packers. I feel like Bunker State Field does not go 2-0. The Bears will beat the Buccaneers by 3 points in this matchup, and both teams will be 1-1 by the end of this contest.
I think the same. Somehow I think I can see the Buccaneers lose this game too. I think the Bears will break through and win. The 0-1 Texans and the 0-1 Colts, they go to Houston. They play in NRG. Kickoffs at 1 p.m., 12 p.m. local time. The Texans are only a 1-point favorite, but they are a favorite. Who do you have between the two rookies?
The battle of the 2 rookie quarterbacks. You stole the words out of my mouth. I was about to say, we will see Richardson get the better of C.J. Stroud. Texans will start 0-2. Colts will be 1-1. And this game will be decided by less than a touchdown of points.
Yeah. The Colts, who were the better team last year, they tied and lost to the Texans in their 2 games last year. I think that they have that fresh in their minds, and I think they will come out with a victory on the road. The Texans just don't have it. They'll start off 0-2. And yes, I know I'm saying this about my team, but I'm real about mine. 4:25 p.m. kickoff. The Cardinals host the Giants. Both teams are on 1. The Giants, though, are favored by 4.5. Who do you have?
The battle of not only the 2 biggest NFC dumpster Pelican teams, but probably 2 of the biggest dumpster Pelican teams of the entire NFL on this Sunday. What could be the modern-day toilet bowl is happening this Sunday between these 2 teams. And when it comes to this game right here, I had the Giants winning week 1, and they proved me wrong on that one. I'm going to give them the victory in this one because this will be the game that they win. And along with their first 8 games where they will be 1-7, they're going to get that victory over the Cardinals and win by 14 points.
Yes, I'm with you. I think the Cardinals will go 0-2 because Joshua Dobbs is not the answer. He's a plug-in. And the Giants, I think, are better than that 40-0 shellacking they took at home. Another 4:25 p.m. game, which was supposed to be one of the big games of the week, but of course, an Aaron Rodgers-less Jets traveled to Arlington to play the Dallas Cowboys, fresh off their shutout victory. The Cowboys are favored by 8.5. Who do you have, sir?
Dak Prescott throws 2 interceptions. You have Zach Wilson, who will probably throw 4. The Cowboys will win by 3 touchdowns.
Actually, I think I like how that is going to go because, yeah, I see it's going to be a mistake-prone game. But the Jets don't have anything on the Cowboys. I feel for the slaughter that I think is going to happen. Your Commanders, they travel to Mile High. They play the Broncos. They are 3.5-point underdogs. Talking about the Commanders are. Who do you have in that 4:25 p.m. kickoff, sir?
If they play like they played this past weekend, they're going to lose. However, I feel like they're going to learn some things from this past weekend, and they're going to start out 2-0. It's going to be a close one. You got Sean Payton, you got Russell Wilson. Even though I talk very lowly of Russell Wilson and threw some shade, I feel like it's going to be a closer game than what we think. The Commanders are going to win this game by less than 7 points on Sunday.
I agree. I'm not the biggest fan right now of Russell Wilson. I'm a fan of Sean Payton. I'm not a fan of Russell Wilson. And I think the Commanders can just throw, I hate to say it like this, they can throw a half-hearted effort, and I think they still can beat the Broncos, even on the road. So the performance they had in Sunday, they can have it this coming Sunday, and it won't be a problem. I really believe that. Sunday night tilt, the Patriots host the Dolphins. Patriots are on 1. The Dolphins are 1-0. 8:20 p.m. kickoff. The Dolphins are favored by many, which I don't know how this point spread works because I think it's ridiculous. I think I saw last year we were favored by 20, but I'm thinking it had to be a mistake. Anyway, who do you have in this game?
Mac and Cheese is going to get mollywhopped in this game by the Dolphins if they play like they played in this past weekend's contest. When you have Tua throwing for nearly 500 yards, you have Tyreek Hill eclipsing over 200 yards and receiving. It's a dangerous matchup against a Patriots team who, they've been known more for their defensive schemes over the years, especially since without Tom Brady or even with them, they were a defensive-heavy team. I just don't think it's going to be enough to sustain or contain the Dolphins. The Dolphins are going to win this game by 10 or more points.
I think the Patriots need to offensively do like what the Chargers did and just keep it close. I think they could afford to do what they did with the Eagles because the Eagles want to play that physical style, but the Dolphins want your tongues to wag, and I don't think that's going to favor the Patriots. So, yes, I think the Dolphins will go 2-0. How you doing, Latina? I'm glad you're here.
Tina!
It's wonderful to see you. All right, so we get to the 2 Monday night. Yes, and I said 2 because there are 2 Monday night football games. The first one being the Panthers hosting the Saints. So this NFC South tussle will begin at 8:15 on Monday. That's when the kickoff is. The Saints are favored by 3. Do you take the road do you take the road favorites in this one?
I do take the road favorites. The Saints are going to mollywhop the quarterback guru head coach and Bryce Young. They're going to beat them by 19 or more points in Carolina is what's going to happen in this game.
I'm not the biggest fan of good Lord. I'm not the biggest fan of he said the quarter whisperer, which he's not. Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I can see Derek Carr going 2-0 and Bryce Young just looking confused in the backfield like he did in the pocket, like he did this past Sunday in Atlanta. And the last of all the games, 9:15 Monday kickoff. The Steelers host the Browns. The Steelers are on 1. The Browns are 1-0, and the Browns are 2-point favorites. Who do you have in this one?
I'm gonna have Deshaun Watson getting that Pittsburgh style massage coming in there and lighting it up on the brightest of lights of the week and winning by 2 or more touchdowns.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying, come here, girl. You know you want to see this. You know you want to see all this. Yeah. Yeah. Let me get right. Let me get just right so you can see the action. No. Don't touch. Don't touch. Just look. Lord have mercy. I take the Browns too. I don't think the Steelers offensively have enough for what they need to defeat the Browns. They have the coaching, they don't have the talent on offense. Defensively, they can keep it close, but that's it. I don't see it happening. I see the Browns taking it, and the Browns being 2-0. Wow. I just can't believe I just said that. And now we'll quickly go to the final score. We basically say what we feel about this past week. And to start things off, Mr. Drew.
You know, we had a wild week for the first week of NFL action here. You know, there was highs, there was lows. It looked like there were certain points where people were smoking to get high because of how they were playing out there in the field. Especially, I still can't get over old Joe Burrow throwing for less than 100 yards, throwing for 82 yards when he just got $275 million in a contract. And then you have Geno Smith, 16-26, for like what, 116 yards, 112 yards, whatever it was still mother-fathering terrible. So when I think about how these guys played, when I think about the hype behind them all year long, it is an absolute travesty to see them play the way they did. And that's why I'm going to take these closing thoughts and I'll go a little bit more into it. But I want to announce that I have 2 exciting things that I'm a part of this week. Tonight, 8:00 p.m. Eastern time, you can find me on the Wrestling Realm as I'll be part of the Championship Culture Show and discuss some championship belts in professional wrestling of the past, present, and what we see in the future. On top of that, I know you guys see me in a lot of sports and entertainment stuff, mainly sports throughout the beginning part of the week. But this week, I actually debut a totally different style of show, a show that looks more into my personality and discuss, more current events, maybe some political things with a comedic twist, some, comedy skits. This first episode is going to be more along the lines of getting to know me, discussing some things in the past, some memories with a little bit of a spin on them. It's going to be very interesting to see that. It will be this Thursday night after football. We have football until about 11 o'clock. This will be airing at 11:15 p.m. Eastern time on Sartoba Media. So for those of you out there who find some of my takes on certain things humorous and the energy that I bring to it, very similar part to that, except for it has nothing to do with sports. So get ready for it. This Thursday will be an every Thursday thing, and I'll be there along the ride with you. So thank you all for tuning in to not only those things, but to this show here. Got 2 episodes into it. Cole has worked his mother, father, and tail off on this show. I've done nothing. I have done absolutely nothing except for show up and talk. Well, I have done the promotional part with promoting this stuff in the social medias. But that's the least I could do for what Cole's doing to produce this fire show. Cole is absolutely killing it. We have had over 2 hours of great fun time today. And I couldn't do this lengthy kind of a show or this style of show with anybody else out here in these streets but him. So I'm very grateful for him and look forward to next Tuesday's episode. And hopefully we won't have some obstacles in our way like we did earlier in the day that'll make us start a little bit later, but we won't talk about that on the air. All we're going to say is we've had one great time talking about week 1 with a week 2 preview. And I hope to see you guys next week, same time, same place.
That was great. And I'm looking forward to D-Will in the evening. I really am. I really am. Yeah. All right. So there was, I think Drew will love this. There was a Commanders fan that was bold and actually said that the R word, was going to take Super Bowl 58 in February. And of course, my slick mouth said, quote, the slur is going nowhere. Not this year. And so there was a Commanders fan that decided to educate me and said, quote, educate yourself, close quote, and put forth a statistic where there was a Native American who was proud to say in 1972 that he would be honored to design the logo of the slur. And look, the Native American that donned the helmets for many a decade is a beautiful symbol. I won't lie to you on that. Beautiful. However, educate yourself, you say, sir? I'm so glad you gave me that challenge. Because you see, this team was not Washington's. This team was Boston's, and they weren't called the slur. They were called the Braves. Yes, like the Atlanta Braves, but they were Boston. 1932. Yeah, you know the established 1932, and you see on the walls of FedEx Field. Yes, the team was in 1932. They were in Boston, and they weren't called the slur. They were called the Braves. Then they got changed into the slur, and then for about a couple of years, they still were there, and they moved from Fenway to DC. And then after that, they failed in mediocrity, and then some success happened. But throughout that, the previous owner, good Lord, George Marshall Preston, he was a hardcore racist. Yes. And the last team in the NFL that had a person of my color play on it, you guessed it, the slur. But I'm not going to talk about that. They had success. And then the next decade, they won championships. Actually, they won 3 Super Bowls in a 10-year span. And then, well, Preston moved on, Jack and Cook moved in, and then the success really started to happen. And then, unfortunately, they took a downturn when Mr. Snyder got into mold. But that is part of the education of that end. But the other end of the slur, let me tell you something, sir. There's a slur that my culture says. Do you feel proud to say it? No? That's what I thought. So if Indians want to say the slur, that's fine. It is not for any of us to say it. But for those who back it, that's fine. I don't care. I'm not. So to you, sir, it's still the slur for the rest of your life and mine. Class is dismissed. Get out of my face, sucker. Lord. Anything you would like to add, sir, before we go?
You are so lucky you went first. You are so lucky you went first because I could go back and forth on that one because does your term have a logo? No, it don't have a logo. There's not a PNG logo on the internet for it. We could go back and forth about my heritage and your heritage, the logos, the lettering, the terms, the pronunciations, and I promise you, if we had 2 more hours today to do this, I would beat you every day of the week. But I'm going to spare you this one time. I'm going to spare you this one time, and I'm going to make a clip out of this because of how great this was for you to end the show this way. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. I actually did that just for you because I wanted to end the show like that because I like to make you smile. Oh my gosh. So if you want to find my friend Drew on the interwebs, all you have to do is go into these places. And if you feel led to donate to his place, Cash App /$DWillie87. And if you want to find me, all you have to do is go on to flowcode.com /page/host Cole Johnson. And you'll find all of my social media there, whether it's Instagram, the X, Facebook, whatever.
X.
And thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking. Thank you for hitting the notification bell for this show that airs exclusively on the Sotoba Media airwaves and the YouTube channel and the Kobe Media Incorporated YouTube channel and airwaves. And that does it for this episode of Total Football Talk. And you got that gridiron action and news straight to you the way you like it. For Drew Willingham, or D Willie, I am Cole Johnson, here to say in parting, as we always do, stay up and tackle going forward with your head, but don't lead with it. Follow through. Remember, follow through with tackles. Till the next week. See ya.